Welcome to episode 403 of the DFO Rundown, as always brought to you by Bet365. Get in the game. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use the promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. Good luck at Bet365. And it's a new season of the DFO Rundown. We got a new co-host. We are very proud to announce that Jeff Marek will be joining us every Monday.
What is up?
On the pod. Yeah. Jeffrey, what's happening, man? What is that hat that you're wearing?
Oh, St. John Sea Dogs. I was in St. John over the weekend for their season opener at a couple of shots against Cape Breton. Lovely time there, hosted by Scotty McCain, the owner of the Sea Dogs, and Trevor Georgie, the president. Had a good chance to talk to Alexi Joseph, who was first overall draft pick in the Q draft, and might just in 2 years, although Landon DuPont will certainly make some noise, be the first overall draft pick in the NHL in 2027. So this is what I'm coming back with, a St. John Sea Dog cap. But I'll tell you, first of all, thanks so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to this season and working with you on a consistent basis. You've done such outstanding work here and elsewhere for a number of years. I'm really happy to be doing this today. So as everyone is listening to this or watching parts of this on Monday, we're recording this on Sunday. And this is a Sunday where for the last 9 years, I've always gone out of my way to note one very specific anniversary. Today is the anniversary of one of the best hockey games I've ever seen. And thankfully, I was there to see it live. It was an afternoon game in downtown Toronto as part of the World Cup of Hockey. Jason, I think you know where I'm going with this one. Today is, as we record this on Sunday, September 21st. You're smiling. I can see the upper teeth. I know you know what I'm talking about. Team North America versus Team Sweden. The 4-3 overtime win, the Nathan McKinnon move, all the U23 kids, and the future of hockey on display. I remember talking to John Cooper once about it, and he said that was the best team that he had ever coached. He was an assistant. Of course, Todd McClellan was the head coach. And here's what I'd like to, just as a little flavor puck or noodle of curiosity here. I've maintained for the longest time that the Hockey Hall of Fame shouldn't just nominate people into the hall or induct people into the hall. Wouldn't it be cool if they could induct individual games as well? And we all think of the Big E's on the Miracle on it. Games. Once every 5 years, you induct an actual game. And if you are going to induct a game into the Hockey Hall of Fame, we'll think of 1987 Canada Cup, game 3. We'll think of 72. Personally, I think game 1 was more important than game 8. To me, game 1 was the beginning of international hockey, but I know Canadians love game 8. I would put Team North America versus Team Sweden. I remember sitting there in the afternoon. Tickets were cheap. It's an afternoon game. I think it was like $15 or $20. I was sitting with now assistant GM of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tyler Dello. We're just sitting there saying, isn't this cool? We just spent $10 and are just watching this incredible hockey game. One, Jason, do you have memories of that game specifically? And what do you think of the idea of inducting games into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Individual games along with people.
I do remember the game. I'll be honest, the McKinnon play obviously is the one that stands out to me from that game.
Yes.
It was pretty exciting. What was unique about that tournament was the Young Guns team, really. Nobody expected them, and they're pretty good, but they were excited and they were quick. I just remember God, they attack obviously McDavid, and then you throw in Nathan McKinnon. You look at other guys in that team, and here we are now, 9 years later. And you're that's some pretty good players from that team who went on to have a really good NHL careers. As for a game, I think it'd be a fantastic conversation. And I'd want to limit it, like you said, maybe once every 5 years. So because there are other games that you would look at, down the road, when I look at a game that people will remember, the Canada-US Four Nations game is going to be remembered for a long, long time.
Yes.
And not the final, the opening one, because
just the Saturday in Montreal, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
You hadn't seen that in so long. And it was country versus country, which always makes it a little bit better. Firm believer in that. There are some great Stanley Cup final games and even a regular season game you could probably think of, but you'd have to have a real I think, sticky criteria, because once every 5 years, like you're talking the history, 100 years, one game, who would vote on it would be good. You couldn't have anybody who participated in the game because obviously they'd have a natural bias towards it, which is fine. It would be a great debate and conversation piece, I think, amongst hockey fans, without question. Like, I actually thought you were going to say the Hockey Hall of Fame should induct teams. And that, because other Hall of Fames do. I know lots of provincial Hall of Fames and stuff. They have in BC, you have those Kamloops Blazer teams from the 90s, right? They went in. I thought that's where you were going. I'm like, ooh, kind of like that idea. So, but games is something totally different, where I think you could get down and have some real phenomenal debates and discussions, and look to say, okay, what's the game that goes in first? That would be the great question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at the Hockey Hall of Fame the same way that I look at individual trophies in the NHL. It's part of the marketing of the sport. Like, that is part of the marketing. Like, we're marketing the brilliance. We're marketing, the great achievers, the ones that in some ways transcended the game, the greats of the great. All the cliches apply, but really it's just a way to market hockey. And that's what we're doing here. And that goes back to your point of, it really does create a really interesting discussion point. Like, I've done it on Sports Talk Radio for a few years. If you could nominate a game to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame, what would it be? You get a lot of Miracle on Ice. Obviously, some of the older set. We'll talk about Game 8, Team Canada. Again, personally, I would put Game 1 in over Game 8, but nonetheless, that's just me. You get 87 Canada Cup. For me, the 1987 playoff series between Philadelphia and Edmonton, that Stanley Cup final was brilliant. The Rangers and Vancouver Canucks.
Which game you picking? Are you picking when Hextall's slashing Nilsson, when Anderson's scoring the series clincher? Like, there's
you know what I might pick, because it might be the loudest I think I've ever heard a rink. Game 6, when JJ Daigneault scored to send it to a Game 7. That I don't know that the Spectrum has ever, and they've won cups there, obviously. I don't think that rink has ever been that loud. And as far as like big Stanley Cup final series moments, that one for me is right up around the top, because the place just popped like the cork out of a champagne bottle. The roof came off. Everybody went banana sandwich, and we were off to a great Game 7. So I don't know, but I mean, I have a bias against. I have a bias for 1987 because I think it's the best year in hockey ever. We can probably do that on a slower DFO rundown Sunday/Monday, but it's an interesting conversation starter. Like, just you're listening right now, like, noodle around in your head. How many games would you individually put into the Hockey Hall of Fame if you could, on this, as we record this, anniversary of Team North America versus Sweden? And as Jack Eichel told me, remember I did this thing with the NHL. We did like an anniversary look back a couple of years afterwards. And Eichel was part of the Zoom call. And he said, I don't know why we're doing this. We didn't do anything. I'm like, you were the most influential team in the history of hockey, maybe, that didn't do anything. Didn't win anything. Had some great moments, excited people, sold a lot of jerseys. There's some, great, Team North America swag that's out there for the hockey hipsters. But Eichel's point was always, I don't know why you're so in love with Team North America. We never actually did anything. Never achieved anything.
Fans, it's a great example of, it's about entertainment. It's not all, there's only one winner. And it's a lot of times I think, get lost in appreciating the steps along the way of a journey. I think sometimes that gets overlooked. So, hey, I get Jack. Now, did you talk to him after he'd won the Stanley Cup? So now he's probably like, hey, dude, if you don't win,
no, it's before.
Nothing matters.
This is before.
Oh, was it before?
This was before. This was before. Now, let me throw one more small little sidebar. I know there's so much to get to today. We're talking about Team North America from 9 years ago. You're right about how that team captured everybody's imagination. Everybody was in love with Team North America. That was all the talk. Okay. Yeah. Jay, let's say it was Team North America versus Team Canada in the final. What does a Canadian audience do with that?
Yeah, well, I think they still probably cheer for Team Canada, even though there's lots of young.
Are you sure? Stars. Are you sure?
Well, you know what? I think they would have.
Everybody was in love with this team.
Yeah. Well, they did let you're right. Some of them probably would have been torn for sure.
Just I think a lot of Canadian hockey fans would have been torn.
Yeah, even if it was Team USA versus them, right? Like now all of a sudden it's like, well, it's my country, but I got some of my best young players playing on this team. It's kind of like asking them to pick between their kids, right? Who's your favorite kid, mom or dad? No one. I love them equally. And every parent knows that's a lie depending on the day. So,
you got that right, brother.
Speaking of Philly and Team Canada and championships and winners, I want to get quickly to Bernie Parent, the passing of Bernie Parent, absolute legendary. Yep. Now, I didn't look this up, but I'm like, he has to be the only goalie I can think of who in consecutive years won the Vezina, won the Conn Smythe, and won the Stanley Cup in 74 and 75. He did all of that. Like that is an unbelievable run. Bernie was one of the nicest guys. Like I had the opportunity to talk to him many times over the years on my show. Unfortunately, passed away due to cancer. But he was an absolute legend in Philadelphia. You were talking about the Spectrum earlier, and I just do you got a Bernie Parent story that comes to mind?
Well, first of all, this has been the most horrible 3 weeks for goaltenders in the history of the sport. After losing Ken Dryden, and then last week losing Ed Jockman, and now this weekend losing Bernie Parent. If tragedy comes in threes, let's hope that it's only three, because those are three giants of the game. For me, Bernie Parent was the best angle goalie of all time. And for my money, he was the best goaltender of the 70s. And that's an era where there were some pretty spectacular and big name goaltenders on some big name teams. I do wonder how much of it was from his time riding shotgun and learning from Jacques Plante in Toronto. They spent 2 years together before Bernie went to the WHA and the Philadelphia Blazers, and then came back to the NHL. And as you point out, won a couple of Stanley Cups and Conn Smythes along with it to go with the Vezinas. Bernie was the reason. Like, Philly was a good team, make no mistake about it. Coached by one of the, and I do say this legitimately, by one of the geniuses of coaching, and that was Fred Shiro, who was the only coach in his time to actually, read books and go to Russia and study the Soviet system of Anatoly Tarasov and bring it to North America. The Flyers, as much as they were tough, they were also a team that was a very smart passing team. When everything in the NHL was grab the puck and it's a solo rush, they move the puck. But make no mistake about it, Bernie Parent won those Stanley Cups for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, I do have a pet conspiracy theory, if you would like to indulge me for 1 second, on my maiden experience here, my maiden voyage on DFO Rundown. I've always believed, and first of all, I just thought of it as, that's an interesting thing to think of, to go through your ears, Marek. But the older I get and the more that I think about it, I'm really giving this concert now. So Bernie Parent won those 2 Stanley Cups for the Philadelphia Flyers. Bernie Parent, as you mentioned, won back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies for the Philadelphia Flyers. He was the reason why they won those Stanley Cups. I always wondered if all those years when Bobby Clarke ran the Philadelphia Flyers, if you look at how he drafted and how he always went cheap on goaltenders, and when there was a chance to sign Curtis Joseph, he went with John Van Beesbrook instead. I wonder if Bobby Clarke, the general manager, was trying to prove to everybody that you don't need a goaltender to win the Stanley Cup, that it wasn't just about the goaltender. Like, if you look at the Philadelphia Flyers history, have they ever, now you can quibble about, players like Travis Sanheim, have they ever drafted and developed an elite level defenseman? And the answer is no. They've either traded for them, bought them. Like, they've always fallen down in that one specific area. Philly has always traditionally been a team that drafts and develops forwards. And I think that was very deliberate with Bobby Clarke, because I think deep down inside, I'm not going to say that he resented Bernie Parent. Bernie Parent was a member of his team. But I think that Bobby Clarke wanted to show that you could win a Stanley Cup with the accent on forwards as opposed to netminders and the blue line. Like you look at we talked about 87 a second ago. Like I look at that, McCrimmon and Marsh and Howe and Crossman, like that was a amazing defense. They drafted none of those guys, right? That's always been kind of the Philly way. And the lingering thought that I have of Bernie Parent is he won those cups. Like those were legit Conn Smythe trophy. Those were no doubters. Those were Bernie Parent's cups. He will be greatly missed. I'm like you, I've interviewed him a number of times. A really kind and generous and thoughtful man whose NHL career, ended much too soon with a stick in the eye in a game against the New York Rangers. Really like larger than life, loved in Philadelphia. Condolences to the family and friends of one of the giants of the game. And again, it's been an awful 3 weeks for goaltenders in the NHL alumni.
Well, if you look at the Flyers, and obviously Ron Hextall was a pretty good goalie that got them to cups in back-to-back. Well, not back-to-back, but there in 87 he was unreal. But if you look in 85 and Pelle Lindbergh, and I think anytime you talk Philly, there's always going to be the what if, right? What if there wasn't that horrific crash in 1986 with Pelle Lindbergh? And because that was during Bob Clark's first tenure as the GM. Right. And and I wonder if that in a weird way, that was always like, impacted him too. Who knows? But it's funny how certain great players, they don't all make great general managers. They don't all make great coaches. It's really hard to do both, because a lot of times, like how Bobby Clark played, there was very few players who had his ability of skill, but just ruthlessness at the same time, right? Like obviously Mark Messier's on that list and is a better player, but there just wasn't a lot of guys, who were like that, who are that skilled and that mean at the same time. And I think I always wonder for a GM, and when you build a team, that sometimes you just look for certain attributes and you have a bias and you don't even know, it might be a subconscious bias. So maybe he was always like, you don't need a great goalie, even though like when they did go to the cup, in 87, Ron Hextall was unreal. He won the Conn Smythe for them, for goodness sakes.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason. I had an interesting conversation with someone today about Bernie Parent, and this person's point to me, and this is like a long-time hockey person who said to me, one of the most impressive things to him about Bernie Parent was how when the Philadelphia Flyers, because like make no mistake about it, like they were a wild team and a brawling team. You fought one, you fought all of them. Fred Shero's idea, they can't throw all of us in the penalty box, so just go and be as aggressive as he can. Like it was crazy town. Like some nights half the team should have been incarcerated. And this person's point to me was an interesting one. They said, this makes Bernie Parent even greater at how he was able to maintain his focus when all around him from his own team was chaos. He said, do you know how hard that is for a goaltender? When everything is just absolutely crazy, right? And it's Schultz and Selesky and Bridgman and you go on and Dog and like everybody, like to be able to keep your focus through that and perform the way that Bernie Parent did. Like I'm really thinking about this a lot now. That's an even greater testament to how amazing Bernie Parent was, that he didn't allow himself to get caught up in the emotions of who the Philadelphia Flyers were. And make no mistake about it, that was a team that played on emotion and fear and intimidation and all these types of things. But Bernie stayed focused through all of it. I think that point's a really good one. I wish I had, there's some points like, I wish I had made that point. That's a point that I came away with this conversation going, I wish I had made that point, because it's a really good one. I'd never thought about it until the day of his passing.
Well, it's funny. I actually talked to Bernie about that once, and he said he kind of got used to it. But he said it allowed me, he goes, I was calm, but he goes, it was kind of controlled chaos for me. I knew that's the style of our team was, and I loved it. But I never dove into it deep, because you're right. I think at times it would be like, okay, I guess we're going to have to kill off a lot of penalties. But you imagine, like, it's funny how Fred Shero was a real student of the game as a coach, but then decided, you know what? We're going to beat the hell out of you if we have to. And obviously you had to have the players who were willing to do it too. You could never force guys to, sure, some might do it, but eventually if you're not comfortable doing something, you're not going to have success at it. And that's what they were able to do.
I think a lot of that too was, listen, it's not exactly a secret. A lot of that brawling style, that was just, Ed Snyder was sick of getting beaten up by the St. Louis Blues. I mean, the St. Louis Blues were the original Broad Street bullies, and Philly was just tired of, dealing with, all the antics of, Plager and Gassoff and Noel Picard. Like, they were just done getting pushed around and getting sand kicked in their faces and getting their per diem stolen by the St. Louis Blues. That was it. The Philadelphia Flyers of that era were a direct reaction to the St. Louis Blues, who were the original expansion tough guys.
So once again, yes, our condolences to all Flyer fans, the Bernie Perrant family, and of course everybody in the Flyers organization. Absolute legend of the game. Had amazing career, amazing life, and our condolences to all of them. Now we continue on. There's lots of stories around the NHL, and one of the interesting ones, Jeff, is involving Luke Hughes. He went out and basically said, "Hey, not Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes said in an interview with Elliot Friedman that, you know what, if we have a good year, then we can look and my actions will he's basically saying, hey, my actions will tell everyone what I'm going to do, and I'll commit to it. And if we don't have a good year, well, then basically maybe I'm leaving." Right. I don't know if we throw that clip in or not, but we'll put the clip in because that's essentially, for anybody who didn't see it, that's essentially what he said. And I love his honesty, because I think anybody from the outside would look at this and say, this is a big year for Vancouver. It's a big year for Elias Pettersson, but it's a really big year for the organization to get back on track so you can show your best player that you're going down a path where he has a chance to be successful and without an endless amount of drama.
Do we have a chance to keep this guy? I think that's what every Canucks fan wants to know. Like, what are you thinking?
I mean, I've really enjoyed Vancouver. I'm very thankful. I mean, when I came to Vancouver, I don't think anyone thought I was going to become what I have become. That's happened because of the people in Vancouver, management, coaching. I've had 3 great coaches between Bruce, Greener, and Rick. And management's been, kind of gave me the keys to the kingdom a couple years ago, naming me the C, and very grateful. As far as this year, I just feel like last year was a failure, and I want to propel my game even further and propel my teammates even further and see what we can do. And as far as that question, I mean, I'll answer that, with my actions next summer. But, I mean, you know how it is. Anything can change. If we have, a terrible year this year, that's probably not going to be very fun. But if we have a terrific year, that's what we want. That'll be really fun. Like 2 years ago was really, really fun. So just leave it at that.
So,
hey, Jay,
there you have it.
Hey, Jay. Do you get the feeling this isn't going to be the last log on this fire this year? That there's no matter which Hughes brother you ask, or the next time Jim Rutherford or Patrick Alvin are in front of a microphone, that there's going to be this question and these type of answers all season long. Like, honestly, I really just think we should just settle in to Vancouver has replaced one drama with another one. Like, again, it's the Sideshow Bob stepping on rakes. Sometimes the errors are unforced, sometimes they're forced. We've gone from, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson sideshow now to the Quinn Hughes Vancouver sideshow. I don't think this is done at all. And the thing about the answer too is there's enough in there for people to feel both comfortable and really uncomfortable at the same time, right? Like, you have to, in an interview like that, with an answer like that, Jay, you kind of have to put on a sort of Quinn Hughes decoder ring and try to say, and you parse every word and what tense is he using when he says my time in Vancouver? Is he insinuating that it's over? Like this is going to be like the Hockey Zapruder film where we go, pixel by pixel and audio clip by audio clip, trying to read in between the lines of what Quinn Hughes is going to do here. All the while, to your point, which I think is the right one, this is a huge year for the Vancouver Canucks. This one's massive, and they're doing it with a rookie coach, and they're doing it with a goaltender who has a significant injury history, and they're doing it without a second-line center that Jim Rutherford talked about needing. Even though it would be expensive, it would be more expensive not to get a second-line center at this point. This is massive, and there's a lot of balls in the air, and this is a team that needs to win hockey games. And this is a team that needs, to your point, Elias Pettersson to return to the form that we saw him at not too long ago. And if all of these things don't click together like a Rubik's Cube, the whole thing might just fall down. And then we'll get to, okay, you said you're going to speak with your action in the offseason. Here we are.
Yeah, I think anybody in Vancouver knows that this is a big year for the organization for a variety of reasons. You want to get back into the playoffs, number one. Like they were one of 3 teams that had 100 points in 24 and then missed the playoffs in 25. So, which has been a trend actually for the last 4 years in the NHL. You had 300 or 400 point teams miss the playoffs the next year. So there was 9 teams last year had 100 points, and by theory, then maybe 3 of them might miss the playoffs, which would be crazy. But some of those years there was 12 and 13 teams, so it's maybe a little bit easier. I think the Canucks, Demko's health is obviously a major question mark. When he's healthy, he's really good. Just will he stay healthy is the question. Elias Pettersson, I think it's a little excuse to use the JT Miller thing at times. I heard he wasn't in the best of shape. That has nothing to do with JT Miller. So this is 100% on Elias Pettersson. I know early reports are he's looked good and great. Well, he's got to come out and show it, and he's got the skill, I believe, to do it. But he's going to have to do it. And I think Vancouver they need to quiet the internal noise, and I think the organization needs to realize that they love to blame other people. It's, these people are making noise. No. Most of your noise comes internally, and then it festers and grows outward. So if they can calm the internal chaos, then I think the external chaos will naturally calm down. If you're playing well, no one's really going to be asking about Quinn Hughes, his contract, other than, what's he going to sign an extension? But I really wonder, you look at how many big name players right now, McDavid, Eichel, Kaprizov, Panarin, Kyle Connor, Bobrovsky. Now he's older, but guys are on multi-year deals, but are now in the final year of their deal. And here we are, a few weeks away from the start of the season, and they haven't signed. And, there's some speculation, and I get Connor McDavid's the best player in the game. So, people, they want to know about it. It's not going to change. I don't think anytime soon. I don't feel like he's in a rush. I think he's pretty comfortable in where he wants. His focus is to get his team off to a better start, because they've had some brutal starts the last 2 seasons. And they were able the last 2 years, if we have a great start, do we want a better finish? It's hard to have a better finish. The only thing they can get better is actually win the Stanley Cup final. So they've been very good, but I think a good start might be the difference for them actually having home ice advantage for more than one round. Or in this, like last year, they didn't have an advantage till the Stanley Cup final. And I do believe, I'm a big believer that wear and tear and the extra travel does catch up to you sometimes. Not necessarily the reason they lost. Injuries to some key guys probably were, but I do wonder, if it's going to start to be the norm, Jeff, where the big time players are going to say, I don't have to sign a full calendar year, before. Some guys might want to, but others might say, hey, I can wait, because if I have time, why don't I use it just to give me more time to see how things are going to play out?
It's interesting too, Jay, because what a lot of players will think, and I think fans will think this too, hockey's dangerous, and the longer you put off, you might get injured. How many players have actually been injured to the point where they've totally missed their payday? Yeah. The reality of being a hockey player. Yeah. The reality of being a hockey player is injuries, and we all understand that. But the amount of players who have had, major injuries that have cost them their maximum payout is minuscule. I'm with you. Like if I'm a player, I'm waiting to the point where it gets uncomfortable enough that a team does something that they didn't plan to do and come up with a number that is more than they're comfortable paying. Now, the exception to this, I think, this year is Connor McDavid. I think that Connor McDavid is walking a really interesting tightrope here, or maybe a better way to put it, Jay, is he's trying to thread a really difficult needle here, one that takes care of him and compensates him at a level that he deserves. And again, I'll always point this out, keeping in mind his last contract, he went back and took less to leave money for Leon Draisaitl so it could be a competitive team. So I think he wants to be taken care of, yet at the same time, he still wants to be able to leave enough money on the salary cap for Stan Bowman to ice a competitive team. Like, listen, when McDavid says, and people around him say he's singularly focused on winning, I believe it 100%. I completely believe it. I mean, here's a guy that, I can remember watching him in minor midget playing for that Marlborough's team with Sam Bennett and Jeremiah Addison and Jaden Lindo and Roland McEwen, like a really great team. And McDavid was obviously the star of all of it. Josh Hosang was on that team. And OHL Cup final, they lost to Robbie Fabry's Mississauga Rebels, 2-1. Yeah. He goes to the Erie Otters in the OHL and doesn't win the league championship, and he's not going to the Memorial Cup. Like it's not, and that's why I think Four Nations was absolutely massive for Connor McDavid. Finally, the big one, the biggest stage at that time, and Connor McDavid is the star. I think he is like singularly focused on, I need to have a Stanley Cup. And if that means I have to take a little bit less, I'm going to do so. Like, I don't think he's doing this specifically to try to squeeze a couple of extra dimes out of the Edmonton Oilers. Like, there are a lot of players that you would look at, though, Jason, and say, like, okay, yeah, they're just trying to, like, squeeze the beaver on the nickel till it squeals here. That ain't Connor McDavid. That's not what he's doing. He's trying to thread a really fine, and at the same time, too, and I don't know if this is still as much of a thing as it used to be with players, but also doing what's right for the Players Association, right? Where the big guys all try to, raise, rising tides, raise all ships, like that type of idea. I don't know if that's as much of a thing as it used to be, but I still do believe for the top guys that it is. You always try to inflate your salary so others can come in and have their salaries grow too. So I think McDavid is a unique one in this situation here, because I really do look at him and say he knows he's close. He knows the Oilers are close. They've been there the last 2 years. Yeah, I need to get paid, but I also am desperate to win this Stanley Cup, and right now the Oilers are the best shot that I have. That's why this one is tricky.
Yeah, I find it difficult to find a place that's clearly better. You could argue that there's some that'll give him an equal chance. Okay, I think it's a very short list, but it'd be hard pressed to say there's an obvious one when you look at who's on their roster, what their salary cap is, that they could fit him in. Because if you fit in Connor McDavid, then you're going to have to clear probably $15, $16, $17 million to make it work. So who has that? And that, I think, is... Well, ultimately, I believe he's going to stay in Edmonton because he has Leon Draisaitl, and they're outside of Colorado with Nathan McKinnon. There's really not a place where you can have a running mate like Leon Draisaitl. Kucherov is damn close, but he's a winger, so it's a little bit different. Not a center iceman. Yeah. So that's kind of funny. Now, we talked about New Jersey, and
hang on, can I follow up? Can I follow up with something really quickly? I hate to jump all over you there. At what point, because right now I don't get the sense that it's uncomfortable for fans. At what point in the season is it uncomfortable where it's like, okay, we need a decision here?
If the orders,
you're closer to it than I am. You're closer to it than I am.
I think, well, there's some fans that are already uncomfortable, but I think for the majority, if the Oilers go in a funk, that's when I think the heat's going to be turned up, because they're like, oh my God, now he's unhappy. He's leaving for sure. Right. I think if they get off to a good start, they're like, oh, He's going to sign here. And it is probably going to change with every 2 or 3 game losing streak. It's going to get brought up sometime by someone else. So it will be, it's going to be trying for some Oiler fans for sure, because obviously, you know what? It is a big concern if he leaves. I still don't think he will, but I could be wrong. Maybe he will leave, but there's so many people that I talk to around the league who believe ultimately when it's said and done that he's going to stay in Edmonton, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Now, quickly,
sorry, you're making a point about Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Quinn Hughes, and a lot of people try to connect the dots of the brothers. They want, of course, like when Jack says, "Yeah, I want to play together," and everyone's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, which 2 brothers wouldn't want, or 3 brothers in this case, wouldn't want the opportunity to play together?" But the Stahl brothers didn't get to play together.
The Primos,
the Sutter brothers didn't get to play together.
Just want to fight.
I mean? Like, yeah, exactly. Like it's difficult. The Sedins got drafted by the same team, so they were lucky and they stayed there. But there's lots of siblings who play in the league and never get to play together. And that's when there's 2 of them, never mind 3. So maybe you could do it. But I will say, if you look at New Jersey, and I just, doing hypothetical what ifs, New Jersey has some pieces because they got some really good young defensemen that you could make a legit package if down the road, if it came to it. New Jersey's actually set up in a pretty decent way. They could make that trade happen. And I would think as an organization, and this is a big if, I don't want Vancouver fans to freak out because at this point, I don't, play well. And I think there's a very good chance I want to stay there. Because like you said, man, 2 years ago was a lot of fun. Being competitive and winning is fun. He didn't win the cup and you still had fun, right? Like there's only one team that wins the cup. You can't tell me they're the only team that has fun every year. Give me a break. There's lots of other teams that have fun. But when you go from a 109-point team to having home ice and playing great to be in the tire fire that last year was, it's such a role reversal that I think the pain hurts more for a guy like Quinn Hughes. He's like, this is embarrassing. Like we weren't even close.
They weren't even close, and you could have made a legitimate case for Quinn Hughes for the Hart Trophy. I know he'll put a lot on himself, and I need to raise the level of my game. He was incredible. Like the difference when Quinn Hughes was on the ice versus when he was on the bench is night and day. The difference when Quinn Hughes is in the lineup and out of the lineup is night and day for the Vancouver Canucks. And if you go by the strict definition of the Hart Trophy, I mean, we probably gave Quinn Hughes a short end of the stick in a lot of ways because they were just a profoundly different team when he was in the lineup, a profoundly different team when he was on the ice. You're bang on about New Jersey and the assets they have, and specifically young defensemen. And it starts, it starts with Simon Nemec, right? Like that's the that's probably the opening bid. Like we're going to start there, and then we're going to start adding on. If you're the Vancouver
and you'd have to add on a little bit more,
and you're making that deal. Absolutely. But like, you're right. Like Seamus Casey, like go right down the list. But then the point that I always come back to is if you're the Vancouver Canucks and you've decided that there's no way you can bring Quinn Hughes back, and this is marching towards this inevitability, no matter what Quinn Hughes says, based on, how he feels and internal conversations with Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford. If you don't think that he's coming back and no amount of money is going to keep him in Vancouver, and the lure of playing with the brothers on a really good New Jersey Devils team in a Metropolitan division that, they have a legit chance at being quite successful in. If you're doing that, are you not listening on everybody? Because now we're changing timelines, right? We always think about every team and I go, whose timeline are you doing this on? Right. And for the longest time now, we're doing this on Quinn Hughes' timeline. If you've made up your mind that it's not going to happen with Quinn Hughes, do you not listen on everybody? Because now the timeline's changed. Completely changed.
Well, I guess so. Yeah, it might have to change the focus of the organization. Obviously, they're probably hoping that's a long ways away and they don't have to worry about it. But here, quickly to wrap up the New Jersey one, what about the fact that Luke Hughes doesn't have a contract? And it sounds like they're like over $1 million apart. Does that straighten where all of a sudden the Hughes family's like, well, maybe this isn't where we're all going to play together? Like, I wonder how much that plays into it, because here we are, training camp started. We've had preseason games. And they don't have a contract. And the recent history of players who are good players who miss preseason and maybe miss early on in the season, Jeff. They don't have very good years.
Don't do it.
Right? It's not worth it. Well, I guess it's worth it if they get their money because the player's like, well, whatever. I guess I have a wasted year, but I'm still getting paid. But it doesn't, like, look at Jeremy Swayman. And he signed right near the end and he never got on track. Nylander a few years ago in Toronto never got it.
Oh, awful.
Through the list, right? Like, they're just not the same.
And that's where you wonder about a young player like Mason McTavish as well in Anaheim. That's that's another example too. Yeah, I'm all summer long I kept saying, listen, even like Luke Evangelista in Nashville, like there's another one which is kind of changed in a lot of ways, because all summer long there was always the belief that Nashville wanted term and Evangelista's camp, and he's represented by Wasserman. They wanted something more short term, which seems to be the way that Wasserman kind of structures a lot of their deals here. Like that's the Judd Moldaver special. But I was always of the mind that this was going to get done, before a training camp, because of the point that you just made too. Like, the Hughes are a hockey family. Like, Jim Hughes is legendary hockey dad, and works at CAA. Like, this is all like, you can't miss time. Like, the cost when you're a young player of missing training camp can be absolutely massive and can devastate your season. I'm with you 100%. I thought this one would have been done by now. I think it's, put it this way, I think it's there are some markets where there's a raging fire over some obvious issues, and we probably just talked about one. I think this is a contained fire. Right now I'm looking at this, Jay, and I'm saying, it's a fire, but it's a contained fire. Because I still think that sooner than later, Luke Hughes gets done.
Me too. But the longer it goes on, it just lowers your chance. And then Brandon Dillon injury now, right? So, that impacts maybe their blue line. I know they got some depth. I thought they had 8 really good defensemen, but you don't have Luke Hughes yet. And now you're losing Brandon Dillon. That's, that's 2 pretty big pieces. Like, I love him as a defenseman, man. Great person, really great in the room. Like, I think that's a real big loss for the Devils.
I will direct everybody listening right now to Amanda Stein's piece with Brendan Dillon about his ADR surgery and what he went through. And the guinea pig sounds frivolous, but I'll use it anyway. The sort of guinea pig for ADR in the NHL was famously Jack Eichel. And that, the Buffalo Sabres saying that we're not going to allow it. That wasn't like, he had asked for a trade before that. I don't think this helped by any stretch of the imagination, but there have been other players since. When we think about, Tyler Johnson, for example, was one, Joel Farabee. And it's become, as players now, it's funny. I was having this conversation with one player not too long ago. We were talking about this very issue, and he said, look, a lot of these guys now are more concerned with how they treat their body, what goes into their body, what type of medicine goes into their body, how they want to do their rehab. He's like, look, we all listen to like Driveline, and we all listen to Huberman Lab. Like, we're all very in tune with our bodies, our health, longevity, all these types of things. We want more autonomy when it comes to deciding what we do with our bodies, which is why that ADR situation was really the first domino to fall here publicly about the battle between player and team and who's in charge of your body and how you want treatment for various ailments and injuries. To me, it's one of the most fascinating topics in sports. When a team says, no, ADR is too risky, we want spinal fusion. And you look at that and you say, like, my dad had that, Jay. And my dad passed a number of years ago, but he had, I think it was 2 different operations where he had vertebrae fused, and later in life, like it was awful for him. But when your team is saying this is what we believe in, and you're saying no, because of this football player and this MMA fighter, I want ADR. But the team science says we don't believe it, and we don't see the evidence there for hockey players, and we don't want to be the canary in a coal mine. What happens? To me, that conversation for the purposes of this show, hockey is one of the most interesting conversations in sports. That's why I loved Amanda Stein's piece. I just thought it was fantastic.
And I should clarify, Dylan's I think if I read the piece right, he should be ready to go this season to start. Kovacevic, though, might not be. So, and then Luke Hughes. But I like Dylan's honesty in the piece, just about, that's is him. Right? Because you go, like when you think, like some people don't even like getting their necks cracked. I totally understand it, right? Like, so, when you think of that type of surgery for a guy who's young, right? Like, and like what he said, he goes, hey man, Jack did a lot of the homework really for me. And obviously he's come out on the other side of it very well. And I think some people are scared of something they don't know. Right. And maybe that's what the Sabres was. I don't know. As you mentioned, like that, maybe that was just part of it. That's not the whole reason he got traded. But, as teams, and it sounds like the Devils were 100% in support and say, hey, let's do this. Right. Like we read up on it. Like, and it's like anything. Jack Eichel does it. It works, ends up winning a Stanley Cup. People are like, okay, like obviously this is good, but it's like someone's
got to go first.
And there's always
got to go
risks.
first.
Yeah, but there's always risks. But for that Dylan piece, and Kovacevic's injury, the Luke Hughes unsigning is something to watch for, because I think New Jersey's a team, like they made the playoffs last year with 91 points, but I think they want to be a lot better than they were. Let's bring in Pat Pup. We got a few other things we're going to come up on the other side. We're going to talk about Nick Suzuki, Montreal. We're going to also talk about some contracts and more. But first, let's bring in Pat Puff, another new addition to the rundown this season. Pat, how you doing, man?
Great. Yourself?
Good.
Excited for some new hockey this season. I'm excited to kind of get back into this and fill in for Tyler this year. It's been a good show so far. But without further ado, we're going to do some buy or sell today, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary. Bet365. Download the app. Get in the game. Use code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. I got a couple for you guys here, and I'll try and keep it easy just because it is the start of the season. Buy or sell 5 Canadian teams will make the playoffs this year.
Ooh, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna say yes. I'll take yes. I'll take Edmonton. I'll take Winnipeg. I'll take Toronto, Montreal. Boy, the one that I'm stuck on is Ottawa. But I will. I'll take Ottawa. I'll take Ottawa for the 5th. Sorry, Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 5 as well. But I think the 5th, I think the Canucks will have a decent chance to make it. I think that, to me, I like Ottawa's team. I think Ottawa's going to be fine. Montreal might be one of the most entertaining teams to watch this year. And when I say that is because there might be some high scoring games. I think they're going to score a lot. I think they're going to give up a lot still. And their divisions, I think top to bottom, maybe a little bit tougher. So that's like, they got in, they had lots of numbers that kind of went their way. So I can easily see, I think Toronto, Winnipeg, and Edmonton for sure getting in. And then it comes down to can 2 of the other 3. Now, I know Calgary had 96 points last year, but Calgary had 96 points, which is actually more than Montreal had to get in, 1 less than Ottawa. But the Flames couldn't score last year. They made absolutely 0 additions to their team. Now, I know they're hoping that Joel Farabee and Frost will be better.
Morgan Frost.
And actually both scored in a preseason game tonight. But my concern is, does Calgary have the offense to score? Because, I don't think you can expect to have 24 overtime games again. I'm just not sure that, that's realistic. So, but you can't really even count the Flames. So to say 5 of 7, I think it's very plausible.
Calgary is interesting to me. This is a great question, Patrick, too. So the Calgary is fascinating to me because, listen, it's not a secret. Even Michael Backlund's talking about this at the European Players Tour, like with Rasmus Andersson, and where's he going to end up? Like that's what the conversation is there. And secondly, at some point, Nazem Kadri is going to say, okay, this isn't what I signed up for. Like there have been plenty of teams going back, not just last year, but probably the season previous as well, that have at least called and inquired to see what it would take. And, given how tough it is to find a second line center in the NHL right now, the premium that Craig Conroy could get for Nazem Kadri here is pretty high. And that's why I wonder if this is the year. Like last year, there's like a lot of moments of excitement, obviously, for Calgary Flames fans. And, Dustin Wolf was such a star. And this emerging young stud goaltender the Calgary Flames they haven't enjoyed since they had, Mika Kaprizov. I just wonder if this is the year that the Calgary Flames, move Anderson, move Nazem Kadri, and really try to give this rebuild more of a jolt here with picks and prospects. That's what I wonder about the Calgary Flames. Does that make sense? We on board with that?
No, yeah.
Or am I on an island?
Calgary's in it. Calgary's going to be an interesting team to watch this year to see where they go. Because if it doesn't go, then obviously, I think Rasmus Anderson's getting dealt, and then if he's getting dealt, maybe some other guys are going to go out at the same time.
Yep, don't disagree.
Great answer.
Patrick, by the way, just so you know, Jay, Patrick saved us in the playoffs in Florida. He's my Florida guy at the Panthers prospect facility, which is first class. Hey, isn't that a nice facility the Panthers have?
Oh, it's one of the nicest arenas. That's obviously not an NHL arena that I've ever been in. I mean, you would just expect nothing less in Florida, I suppose. But the two rinks were great. Really good. They were great hosts as well.
Yep, absolutely.
I was looking at some of the other odds on Bet365 and kind of going along with some of the major storylines this year. And one of the best goal scorers in the game, Auston Matthews, is plus 240 to score 50 this season. So are you buying or selling on Matthews hitting 50, especially without Marner this season?
Plus Jason, you take this one first. Hot potato to you.
Well, the thing about Matthews is I still think he's the most dangerous goal scorer. Maybe not the most consistent. I would actually give that to Leon Draisaitl the last few years, but he's the most dangerous. Injuries are the big thing with Auston Matthews. It comes down to if Auston Matthews plays 75 plus games, he'll score 50 goals. I don't really have much concern with that, but he's going to play that many games, and then how many games is he going to play where he's healthy? And that's the question I have with Matthews, and it's the hardest part to answer, because I think if he's healthy, then to me it's a no-brainer. He scores 50. But how confident am I that he's going to be healthy? It's been the unfortunate part of his career that he had. He's only scored 50 goals once in his career, I think. Is that it? So maybe it's twice now, but when it is hard to score 50. You got to stay healthy. No, he scored 60 twice.
Twice. You got 60 and 69.
He's done it twice, which is still really good. Don't get me wrong. But, last year he missed 15 games again. And even then he wasn't on pace to score 50. But I think Matthews is going to be motivated to show people that, Mitch Marner's gone. We're still here. And if he's healthy, he's scoring 50. So I will take it.
First of all, I'll buy on that one too. I think that your baseline is somewhere between 45 and 50 for Auston Matthews every season. I share Jay's concern as well that injuries may keep Alexander Ovechkin's goals record safe for a number of years, although David Pasternak's going to want to make a lot of noise about that one at some point. Here's what I wonder about Auston Matthews, just as a quick sidebar here. I know nobody likes talking about it. I know hockey players specifically, pride themselves on playing every single game. When you look at Auston Matthews and you look at, the schedule, adding a couple of games starting next season, is he going to be the sort of test case in the NHL for load management? Now, we've seen teams like the Anaheim Ducks limit games. I remember Leo Carlsson when he came in. No, we're not playing him every single game. We're going to spot him here and spot him there. But does Auston Matthews become the test case for load management in the NHL? And what's the reaction to it when you sort of plot this is how many games we're comfortable playing Auston Matthews given the nature of his health and the consistency of him being, consistently injured season after season here. and needing to keep him healthy for the playoffs? Does he become the guy? That's what I wonder about with Matthews.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be fascinating. I think it'd be a real hard one to convince guys to do it all the time, because there was a little, when you don't really see a ton of it in the NBA as much anymore. It was almost like the Kawhi Leonard, and he did it.
That's what I'm getting at.
Now,
yep.
Kawhi's in a little bit more trouble maybe for other things right now, so we'll see. But I thought it would be fascinating if like a guaranteed load management will come in.
I think at some point it will. I think hockey is so hard. Hockey is so long, and we're adding games to the schedule. And now this is Olympics and a condensed schedule.
Yeah, I can see the 30-plus-year-old. Like, I'll tell you right now, when the Olympics, you come back from the Olympics, it's my superstar player. I'm just going to say, hey, you're gonna miss a game. You're just going to relax right after. I wouldn't call it load management.
Sure.
I just call it, you just played games. You can rest. But easier said than done, because you got to convince them to do it. Yeah.
You need a snappy title for it, Jay, though. You need a snappy.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't like load management
for it.
Yeah.
Put them on ice.
Final question, Pat.
Well, I guess final question. We'll try and keep this one quick because these answers have been great. Bet365 seems to think that the Utah Mammoth are going to make the playoffs this year. Personally, I'm buying on that at -110. Is this the first season the Utah Mammoth make the NHL playoffs? Buy or sell, Jeff?
It's been so long. We've been waiting for it. And first of all, you know how I really and I by the way, I do think that Utah makes it this year. That's one of those things that I'm letting my heart lead more so than my head, but my heart's catching up to my head pretty fast on this one. I'll tell you who I'm going to feel pretty bad for, because I do think that Utah makes it. I'm going to feel bad for Coyotes fans. That a couple years after splitting, then they finally break through with how many Coyotes players in that lineup on that roster. I think Peterka helps a ton with Utah. Having said that, I still do think that what Buffalo got in return makes them a more complete team, but still adding 30 goals and who knows how many more he can get playing in Utah and JJ Peterka, I think is massive. I'm buying on that one. I think Utah makes the playoffs this year. What about you, Jay?
Be a great story.
And Cooley's going to have a massive year. Logan Cooley's having a massive season. He's having a massive year this year, and you know it.
There's a lot of things I like about that team, but the Central I think is hard. So I look and say, okay, well, who's coming out? Because Jim Montgomery, all you got to do is look at Jim Montgomery's track record as a coach. His teams are very sound defensively, and they've got. I think Snuggerud's going to have a good first season. I know he played last year, but you know what I mean, like a first full season in the NHL, because he's still a rookie. Weird rule, but he still is. And Kyrou and Thomas. Thomas had a great season last year. They got a good amount of pieces there. I think they got good depth scoring. Binnington's bounced back. He's very confident. But Jim Montgomery's teams know how to play. And how about, was there anybody who had a quieter 16-goal season than Colton Parayko last year in the NHL? I don't know if anybody really talks about it, but he had a bounce back here. Mm-hmm. So, and then I look at Minnesota and Colorado and Dallas and Winnipeg, and I'm like, where's the space? So I'm selling.
Yeah. I know what you're saying about quick point about St. Louis. I know what you're saying. I really like Zach Bolduc. And I know that St. Louis, you mentioned Jimmy Snuggerud, they have a lot of kids that are coming. They have a lot of young kids on that roster, neighbors. I think Robert Thomas is poised to have a massive season and make Team Canada for the Olympics. But from what I saw with Zach Bolduc last year, I don't know if I'm the St. Louis Blues. Listen, Logan Mayhew's a nice, big, tough, right shot, the defenseman. Looks great in preseason so far. I'll take that. To me, that's one of the best moves of the summer. Good on Quinn Hughes for that one. I just don't know that was the smartest thing that I saw from a team this summer.
See,
I don't like taking Zach Bolduc off that roster. There's some by the end, I was talking to someone in St. Louis not too long ago, said, what we saw in him towards the end? There was some David Perron in his game. I love David Perron. David Perron. And if that kid is bringing you 20 goals and is starting to play like David Perron, man, I do not take that out of the lineup ever.
That trade, I loved it because it's going to be a great conversation piece. It's a forward and a defenseman, so very different in what they're going to do. But there's a lot of people that love Mailloux that I've talked to as scouts who think, oh my God, I think you're getting a defenseman who's going to play you 20 minutes a night, 22 minutes a night, down the road. Maybe not this year per se, but down the road for a guy in Balduc who they don't love. But then I get the other side is exactly what you said. So it's a great trade because it's two young players, both with potential. Obviously, Bolduc's done more so far at the NHL level. And I'm curious to see how it plays out down the road because it's funny. I don't have a strong enough opinion on either one of them because I haven't seen either one of them myself enough. So I talk to people on both sides and it's been split pretty much 50-50 and very much like, oh, I think St. Louis won easy. I think Montreal won easy. That's what makes it a great trade.
I'm just impressed that St. Louis went out and got a young defenseman and didn't grab just another Cam Fowler, another Justin Falk, which seems to be the MO for the St. Louis Blues picking up blue liners.
All right, well, great answers, guys. That went great. Buy or sell, brought to you by Bet365. I'll let you get back to it.
Awesome. Now, hey, speaking of Montreal, it's a small little thing, but do you see the Nick Suziki, and he's learning French. And
love it.
Now, as somebody who graduated at J.H. Picard High School, shout out to J.H. Picard. So, was obviously fluent in French, can speak French. And no one in my family, when my parents put me in it in grade 4, I had to start learning French. And it was when you're a kid, your brain's different. It's easier to learn it, but it was, you lose a little bit when you don't talk as much. Now my son's in it. So I've, been reading with him and kind of refreshing my mind on it. But I just think it's a great thing to do for a guy like Suziki, especially in that market. You want to endear yourself to the fans. It's very important. I know some people who speak English are like, well, it's not that important. I'm like, well, dude, to be like someone coming here who doesn't speak English and they learn how to speak English and you respect them. Lots of the European guys, right? Lots of the Russian players who, figure out how to speak English. I think it's important. And so when you're the captain in Montreal, I think it's important. Now he doesn't have to be fluent. I don't think he's going to sit down, right. And regale people with a really in-depth, and I graduated French. If you asked me right now to do a French interview, I could do it, but I'd be searching for words. There's no question about it. So I don't expect him he's necessarily going to get that far, but he'll be able to say a few things, no question. And most people just look and say, wow, he's actually trying. And I think the French community is going to love it.
And they already do, right? And as one Francophone friend of mine pointed out, he didn't say NHL, he said LNH, which is a tiny little detail that, if you're Québécois,
Ligue Nationale de Hockey, for anybody listening.
Ah oui, c'est vrai ça. So like that there's an appreciation and respect level there. I'm with you. Now, can I tell you this little game that I play every time I go to Montreal? Every time I go to Montreal, Jason, I play the same game. I say, okay, I'm going to see how far my French can take me into this province. I get off the plane and I say to myself, I'm going to speak French until someone finally responds to me in English and says, all right, enough of your choppy French. Let's just get this conversation over with. Je peux parler français un petit peu, mais pas beaucoup. I can speak a little bit of French, but not a lot. Enough to sort of get by. Unlike you, I just took the extended program in Humberside. That was the high school that I went to. I took a couple of classes at university and would watch French games. I would watch hockey games en français when I was a kid, mainly because I love the penalty calls. There is nothing cooler than the roughing call in French, 2 minutes pour la rudesse. La rudesse, to me, is the best call in hockey, nonetheless. So I play this little game. I get off the plane and I say, okay, I'm only going to speak French and see how far I get, how deep I get in the province. Jason, I never made it to the hotel. Like my Uber driver is always like, it's like within like 3 minutes, like, okay, yeah, okay, Anglophone. Like, I get that you're trying. I'm like, I'm trying. At least I keep hearing you just want us to try. Like, okay, let's just get on with this conversation. I've never made it to the hotel. Not once, Jason, all my years of traveling.
You know what? The fans are going to give him a longer leash than they would most other people. I can definitely tell you that one
the captain of
for
the Habs.
Sure.
not the captain of the Habs.
What's your expectations of Noah Dobson? Yeah, no, I think it's really good. What's your expectations of Dobson in Montreal?
Great question. I like Noah Dobson a lot. I think that right away he helps your power play. I think, getting a top 4 defender is one of the hardest things to do. They gave up a significant amount to get him. As far as expectations, I think that he's someone that's going to be a veteran player. Veteran player. I just watched him was it 2017 in Regina at the Memorial Cup 100-year anniversary. And here I am talking about him like he's this wily vet. But more of a veteran presence on the blue line, help the power play. And he's one of those guys that you sort of need if you're going to do something a little bit more than just squeak into the playoffs. If you're the Montreal Canadiens, I'm not expecting massive things. Like I'm not expecting, he's going to be a Stealth Norris Trophy candidate for the Montreal Canadiens. But I think he's more of a veteran guy there, knowing that this whole thing on the back end is all going to revolve around Lane Hudson and what Lane Hudson can do. But I think he's a good veteran player that's going to help on your special teams. What about you?
Yeah, you might not his point totals because of the power play and Lane Hudson, but I honestly think come playoff time, you're going to need guys like Noah Dobson. Just you look at the playoffs, it's hard to be a smaller defenseman in the postseason to go deep. There's obviously guys who can have success with it, but the truth of the matter is the game changes in the playoffs. And I thought that was a massive addition for Montreal and is definitely one of the storylines for sure to watch from there. Before we wrap up episode 403, the first one for us together and on a new year, we should remind everyone. So Jeff's going to join us on every Monday pod, and we have a Friday co-host. So we're going to have, and I'll give you a hint. It could be like M&M, Marek, and then there'll be another M on Fridays.
Can I guess?
Unveiled this Friday. No, you can't guess. Keep it quiet.
Oh, okay.
So we look for that.
It's Elliot Friedman. It's Elliot Friedman.
If you, Friedge and I actually played golf together and probably had the greatest for two schmucks. Our team ended up 14 under in a scramble and no mulligans, nothing. And,
really?
And I will give Friedge, he literally showed up. We were on the first hole. And so it was the Barry Cates Memorial Golf Tournament they do in Edmonton to start the season off every year. And so they just pick different foursomes. You play whoever. And so it was me and Friedge were riding in a cart, and we had Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson who were on our team. And Bowman he was a pretty good player. But so the three of us are on the tee, and Friedge, of course, comes in hot. He's late. His hair's all, messed up, whatever. Yeah. And so he jumps off, and we start on a par 3, and he puts it right on the front of the green, probably about 12 feet from the pin. Hadn't took a warm-up swing, hadn't been anywhere. And so we were laughing, and then he made a few, he had a stretch. And the great part was our whole team, we had different stretches where everybody played well, but I never played on a scramble where we were 11 under in a 9-hole stretch. We birdied every hole and eagled 2 of them. And I drained a 20-foot putt, and then Jeff Jackson drained a 60-footer for eagle. And it was hilarious.
Jax did?
So we had Friedge and I, yeah, true. So Friedge and I, we had a great time, the 4 of us, and we were laughing. It was kind of that might've been the most fun I've had in a tournament like that, where you're just we couldn't miss for a while. We just couldn't miss.
How much
I had to give Friedge
how much time did he spend on his phone? I mean, I worked I broke into the industry with him my entire pro life. How much time did he spend on his phone?
He was on it enough, and that's why, because I talk about I'm to be a real insider in the NHL, I'm I wouldn't want that job. I've gone out for dinner with those guys before, and I'm like, geez, your wives must want to kill you because you're on your phone all the freaking time. And I've had it with Frank. We've gone for dinner. I'm just dude, for me, I'm going to put I'm well, you can't miss a story. And I'm just well, can you? So yeah, it's a tough gig, man. I wouldn't want it. They do a great job.
You know what? You know what scared everybody? That St. Louis, Colorado, Shattenkirk, Kevin, Chris Stewart deal that dropped at 2:00 in the morning. That's the one that scared all the insiders, where I was oh man, okay, yeah, I really got to keep this. I can't just keep it on vibrate. I gotta have a loud beep in case I'm asleep, in case this thing happens, and I gotta go hot. Brutal. That was the one that scared everybody. 2 o'clock, 2 or 2:30 in the morning. That Colorado St. Louis deal was done.
Yeah, no thanks. It's a great gig, but it's like any gig, there's pros and cons for sure.
True.
Jeff, great stuff, man. Looking forward to having you on the rundown throughout the year, and it's going to be fantastic. And of course, everybody can catch you on the sheet at Daily Faceoff as well. So have a great week, and we will chat with you next Monday. That's the rundown brought to you by Bet365.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on the sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.